Yo, what is up, guys? Mike Thomas, aka the Young Trishula here. I am joined once again by Twitch chat. You can come join us over at twitch.tv/TrishulaTTV. We have a lot of fun over there. But today we are going to be talking about a very special Dragon Link deck list that recently got first place in an unlimited tournament. So if you've never played unlimited format before in Yu-Gi-Oh, it is the format where there is no ban list at all. And so everything is legal, the whole card pool is legal, but there's no ban list. So you've got cards like Soul Charge at 3, you've got Painful Choice at 3, Graceful at 3, Pot of Greed at 3. Everything you can imagine is at 3. And as you would expect, it's a very, very high power format. And I recently worked with my Twitch moderator, Tempest, who you might be familiar with if you've watched all the videos on the channel or if you watch the Twitch streams. And we worked together on a list, and he managed to get first place with the list that we built together. So very proud of him. Want to give him a big shout out. He also streams, so you can check him out at twitch.tv/TempestTTV. But I do want to just go over this deck list because people don't really talk about unlimited format very much, and people don't actually know that Dragon Link is the second best deck in unlimited. And that always takes people by surprise. So I did just want to take a second to talk about it and go over the deck list and kind of some of the deck building ideas that are on display, because I think it's kind of an interesting format to talk about. And if you understand the deck in unlimited format, it might help you understand kind of where the deck is at now in the current TCG and, Master Duel, other places. But as always, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how you feel about this. And yeah, so let's just hop into this real quick. So this here is the deck list. I'm going to start and just go through it, kind of section by section and give kind of the reasoning on some of the cards that we played. So we played 15 Bestials. We play the maximum number in the main deck because we needed to respect Tearlament. Tearlament is obviously the best deck in unlimited format. They just have too many good cards with Painful Choice, Graceful Charity, the Shizu cards all at 3, all of the main deck tier stuff at 3. It's just the best deck in the game's history in this current moment. So we have to have max respect for it. But thankfully, Dragons is probably the best counter deck to tier, hence why it's the second best deck in the game, because we're able to just comfortably main all of the Bestials. So that's why we main deck all of those. Moving on to the Rockets, pretty standard Rocket package, just 2 Tracer, Recharger, Synchron, Absorator. We've been playing this package for forever. There's not much to say about that. Then for the normal summons, we played 3 Safer. We did not play the Black Metal package, but something to kind of note is that we did play the Eclipse Wyvern, which, while it isn't necessarily your normal summon, you can treat it like a normal summon. Because it functions kind of similarly to Black Metal, where you can banish the Red MD, and then if you have a Bestial or something in your hand, you can just search anything in your deck. So it's not really that bad of a normal summon either. So we counted it in our normal summon count. So 4 normal summons. Then moving on to the extenders, obviously you have the 2 babies, 2 white, 2 black. I think that's probably just the perfect ratio. You can play 1/1 if you want to squeeze more defensive cards into the deck, but I didn't really think that was necessary, and getting that free +1, getting yourself the free discard does matter a lot. So 2/2 is fine. Also, it helps out with us playing 60s, so math is always nice. Then the 1-ofs, we have the 1 Levianeer, the 1 Red MD, and the 1 Buster Whelp. If you are unfamiliar with this card, I'm not sure why it says TCG. It's not a TCG exclusive. Maybe there's a difference on YGO Omega. This tournament was played on YGO Omega. Maybe they have some ruling differences with the card or something. I'm not really sure. But if you're unfamiliar with this card is a Vanity's Emptiness. If it's equipped to a monster, your opponent can't special summon from the extra deck. So this card is very, very, very powerful. And historically, this was what Dragons hoped to achieve, way back in the day, and we have since had to replace it because we have lost Union Carrier. But this card is very, very, very good. And it's part of how the tier matchup kind of gets solved very easily by this deck, because tier can't do anything without its extra deck. So if you just Buster Lock the tier player, they just cannot play the game. And then you might be curious as to why we play the one Red MD if we're not playing the Black Metal package. Red MD is insurance for stuff like Nibiru. It's also very searchable with the Eclipse Wyvern, so it is just a free extender that you can also use to summon off of seals if you do get nibbed at some point during your combo to help you kind of extend and play through. So we played that. And it pretty powerful. Moving on to the defensive cards, it was 3 Ash, 3 Max C, and nothing really to talk about there. You might be wondering why we didn't play something like Droll in the main deck, and I'll get to that in a little bit, because I think that is a consideration that you could play, but I do just kind of want to go into the theory when we come to that. So moving on to the spells, it's not going to be anything too crazy. It's the two field spells, you have to play those. It's still Dragon Link. 3 Chaos Space, Mayar Chaos Spaces, rest in peace in the TCG. 3 Painful Choice, because this is the best card ever printed. This card is literally Chaos Ruler just as a spell card. It just dumps 5 cards from your deck to the graveyard, and then you get to add one of them to your hand, and you can just dump anything. I think that this card by itself is full Dragon Link combo. So it's just really, really good. It's just really stupid. And then 3 Soul Charge, obviously, like this card is just super Monster Reborn. You just flood your field. So you don't really care if you get nibbed too bad in this deck, because they nib you and you just say, okay, Soul Charge, I'll summon back all my monsters. So you killed my seals. Okay, no big deal. So this card's just crazy. And then I'm going to skip over these just for a second because this is the more interesting conversation. The 3 Quick Launch, obviously, 3 Crossout, and then Regained plus Beast. And now jumping back to like the spell defensives so that we can talk about these. We played 3 Thrust and 1 Tactics in the main deck, as well as 3 Crossout in the main deck. And you might be wondering why that is. Like, why wouldn't we be main decking Called By? Because what happens if you get Drolled? We're not maining the Droll, so Crossout does nothing into Droll. Well, the thought here was that we really don't care too much about the Droll because of the Eclipse Wyvern. The Eclipse Wyvern lets us search most of our deck, actually, just without properly searching it. Like, you kind of get to cheat it. It's like, oh, I'm going to put it in the Banished and then get it to my hand. So it kind of gets around Droll. So you don't really care about Droll as much as you might think in unlimited format. But not only that, too, the idea with Crossout is that Crossout can hit some of these really powerful spells. So, like, if you don't get Max Seed, you don't really care too much. You can kind of play through everything. So you may as well just set that Crossout and try and call, like, a Painful Choice or a Soul Charge or something, because pretty much every deck in the game is going to be playing those. So we figured main deck the Crossouts and then side the Called Bys for game 3. But the reason that we main deck the 3 Thrust and the Tactics is we were on the phone building this deck for like maybe 4 or 5 hours, and we just kind of had the thought, and we were like, well, wait a second. Every broken card that's banned in this format is a normal spell card. They're all just powerful spells. It's like Painful Choice, it's like Soul Charge, stuff like that. And if the only other deck that we really care about in the format is Tearlament, then Thrust is always going to be live, because on the first turn of the duel, they have stuff like Havness, they have stuff like Tear Cash, they're going to be playing on our turn, and, that might be very disruptive, it might be very, very annoying, but does it really matter that much if we can just thrust into a Soul Charge and summon 5 monsters after? Does it really matter if we can thrust into Painful Choice and just generate all of the advantage in the world because they decided to put a monster on the field? Yeah, so that's kind of where our head was at with that. And then when you go second, these cards are crazy because like they let you search all of the broken spell cards. So that's why we decided to include these in the main deck over something like Called Bys or Drone Lockbirds, is that we were really just saying, well, the only deck that we're going to respect is Tier. Everything else we should just be better than. And that kind of was the case. That's kind of how it worked out. So I think they were a pretty solid include. Yeah, so that was the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. The extra deck is something now that might also be surprising, because if you look at it, it's all linked to our lowers, except for Borland. It's just 3 Synchro monsters and a bunch of Link 2s. And that is kind of the state of Unlimited format, where everything is so good that you don't really need any of your big link monsters anymore, because Borderlands isn't even really a card that you properly summon in this deck, which might be a surprise to some people. So obviously you play the one Dispatter, the one Chaos Ruler, and the one Boral Savage. And then moving with the links, we played the 2 Striker, LP, Pisty, Agripane, because all of the Guard Dragons are here, so we have all 3 of them at our disposal. We have Rom, Seals, Union Carrier, Hulk, Dark Charmer, SP Little Knight, and the Borland Dragon, my bad. And so these cards are really, really nice, because what you can actually end up doing is you can use the Agripane to cheat out the Borland Dragon. So you don't actually have to link off 5 monsters. You can just summon it for free using 3 monsters. So as long as you have the Agripane with one of these guys pointing to it, you just get your Borland for free, which means that you have so many more resources at your disposal to just vomit your whole extra deck onto the field. Typically, the end board would look something like Seals, Borland, Dispatter, Savage, Union Carrier, and like maybe an SP Little Knight with Beast and Regain set up, and like 5-6 cards in hand. Like you just vomited everything on the board. And there was just nothing they could do. Honestly, Chaos Ruler could potentially even be cut, because you just don't need it. Like it's a painful choice from extra deck, but you don't get to pick the cards, so it's not as good. It's just really, really not necessary. Hulk also was kind of an underperformer. We saw for like post tournament, but we did leave it in there just as a way to play around stuff like There Can Only Be One, and Zombie World, I guess, just in case people are playing those in their side patterns somewhere. Because Hulk just, it makes SP Little Knight pretty easily. But yeah, SP Little Knight taking on the role of Unicorn in the extra deck is really, really nice, because you don't have to find space for access code talker. And especially when it's so easy to just vomit out these really big monsters, you don't need to access code pop their board and kill them in the traditional way, because you can just put 12k in stats on the field so easily, and it's just fine. So the extra deck, really, really solid, really tight, actually. If you're going to cut stuff, it would be like maybe one of these 2 cards, but I don't really think there's anything that you should change in the extra. It all kind of just has its role. Then moving on to the side deck, this is where the deck I think gets the most interesting, because the side deck is actually really clean, but a lot of thought went into it. So we have the 3 Draw and Lock Birds, obviously for your stuff like Exodia, your stuff like, I think we include this in the siding pattern for tier, actually, if they're playing Graceful Charity, which I guess is another thing I should comment on before YouTube comments go crazy, is we're not playing Pot of Greed or Graceful Charity in this deck, because those cards are simply not good enough. Which is a really weird thing to say, but those cards just don't do anything for you in a format that's this high powered. Like there's just no space. Why would I waste deck space on Pot of Greed when I'm already going like plus 12 if I draw just like normal cards? You know what I mean? And that's kind of a symptom of where Yu-Gi-Oh is at in general, and you kind of see that in modern deck building to a lesser degree, where it's like you don't see the top decks playing stuff like Pot of Desires. Yo, we just got the sub in the middle of the record. Thank you, Nick.
Happy belated birthday. I didn't forget Trish Clown.
Yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, so you see that in modern Yu-Gi-Oh though, with Pot of Desires and Upstart Goblin not usually being played in the top decks, because there's simply not space, right? Like those could instead be hand traps to help beat some of the other top decks more consistently. And you really only start to see those like draw spells pop up in like more mid-rangey options. So you might see that in like pure Zodiac in unlimited format, but you wouldn't see it in like more of the top end stuff. I think the only draw spell that maybe gets played is Graceful in tier, and even then I'm not even sure if it's that good, because it's not a good mill. So I don't really know if you would want to. Like, you have so much mill power in that deck anyway, you don't really need the Gracefuls. But anyway, the Drolls are there for like your Exodias, your FTKs. Maybe if they're playing Pots and Gracefuls, you can just throw those in. Which is another reason why you don't play them, is everybody plays Droll in this format, so like they're not that great. Then we put in the Gammas. The Gammas are mostly here in part because they're solid hand traps, but also because you want to catch stuff like Opposing Droll and Lockbird, Ash Blossom, Max C on stuff like Painful Choice, for example. Like if I go Painful Choice and you're forced to Ash that card, you know, and then I have Gamma, you lose the duel immediately. So you want to have these Gammas for when you go first, but also just decent disruption for going second, because there's not really space for stuff like Nibiru or other powerful non-engine hand traps. So this was kind of the best in slot that we could find. Then, so like these are kind of our going second cards, where these are our going first cards. Like the side deck kind of splits at driver, where we then play 3 Forceful Sentry, 3 Called By, a Pointer, and Imperial Order. So the Forceful Sentry and Called Bys, these are all your just like simple max C, like deterrence, repellents. So like if you draw a Forceful Sentry, the game is pretty much over immediately, because it's like resolving tactics, which we're all familiar with in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, but you don't have to wait for them to play a card. So you just get to see their hand and then rip a card. If they have Max C, they're forced to chain Max C to Forceful Sentry, so you rip 2 cards for free. So this card is just very, very, very strong. Yeah, not much to be said there. I think you have to play it if you go first in this format. Called By, obviously, just more hate for Max C, Droll, etc. And then stuff like the Appointer. Obviously, we're already main decking 3 thrusts, so we want to have a pointer to set. Just more ways it's like, okay, did you Max C me? I want to just look at your hand, hope that you can't play, and maybe get a turn back. Yeah, so that, I mean, these 7 just all kind of do the same thing. The one thing here, though, is that we play 1 Imperial Order, and you might look at that and you say, well, that's weird. Why are we on 1 Imperial Order? Like, wouldn't we be on 3 if we're going to play Imperial Order? Because that card just auto wins you the duel, right? Like, maybe we cut out some of the Forceful Sentries or something like that, because this card's just better. Well, the idea with Imperial Order is that this was specifically respect for Mystic Mine, because we didn't have this in the list. And I think it was at like 4 in the morning. I just panicked and I was like, oh my God, we auto lose to anybody who shows up with hard Mystic Mine stun and just like Mystic Mine burn. So Imperial Order is kind of your like Harpies sort of, where it's like you draw it eventually, and when you set it, you know, it beats Mystic Mine. So you put it in your deck just so that you can't get Mystic Mine. But if you also just draw it going first, it's still Imperial Order. So it's, you know, the most broken card in the game, but it's your one of out to a Mystic Mine, and it also prevents future Mystic Mines too, so pretty nice card. And just, we wanted just something to respect that, just as a possibility. Thankfully, nobody decided to queue up with hard stun in the tournament, so we got to dodge that. But that is the glaring weak point here in this deck list, is that if you do queue up into somebody and they're just playing like hard stun, you don't have space for like Harpies, reboot, stuff like that. So it's kind of like an honor system. You have to like just hope that they aren't gonna play something like that. But yeah, we did need to find respect for it somewhere, and so this was the respect for it. But yeah, this is really just the deck. This is just kind of a fun little thing to discuss, because I don't feel like people ever really explore Unlimited format. I think it's actually kind of a fun format, because it's cool to see what decks do at their absolute like pinnacle, and then you can kind of work backwards from there, see where you're at like the current TCG, and say, okay, these are what all of its tools, like when it has all of its tools, this is what it does. What is it doing right now? And like which tools were important to like getting it to that crazy state. So it's just kind of a cool thing, just at least for deck building, to recognize the important cards. And also it's just really, really fun to end on like plus 12 Buster Lock, like 5 negates, just play through 2 hand traps. Like it's a lot of fun. But this is a lot of fun. If you're interested in this kind of unlimited stuff, I didn't prepare any replays, but if you're interested in it, leave a comment, let me know. I'll get some replays. I'll message Tempest. We'll get the replays and put those up so that you guys can just see what I'm talking about when I say this deck just ends on everything. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.